On Friday, I released the first of 12 movies I'm making this year. It's called The Hero's Journey, aka My Life, aka The Caleb Johnston Story. I'm Caleb. And today I want to break down the budget of that movie. The biggest expense in this movie was a rental car. I was home in Massachusetts for the holidays anyways, and I just extended my trip a couple weeks to shoot this movie. And since I flew there, I didn't have a car to get around, so I needed to rent a car anyway, so I just rented it for the duration of the movie shoot as well. And that was 12 days, 13 days of shooting, which cost me $750. And, I knew I'd have to do this expense anyways, or else I'd be stuck at my mom's house for the entire duration. But I was like, how do I smartly weave this into the story? It's kind of too nice of a car for Caleb to have. So therefore, I conceptualized this idea that his actual car's in the shop and this is a loaner car or a rental car that the insurance covered for the time being. And I think if you have a production necessity that you need to pay for anyways, milking it as much as you can within reason is a really good approach. Like, I could have easily not shown the rental car once in the movie. I'm also horrible at drawing cars quickly. This is a janky looking car. Yeah, definitely, like, if you're getting something anyways, figure out how that thing could also factor into the story, how symbolically it could work to like show this character has lost this comfortable familiar thing and is being pushed into this new found territory that feels like it can leave him. He could lose it at any second, That sort of feeling is something that I was like, how can a rental car evoke something more than just being a useful tool for getting around? And the second biggest expense is the handy cam. I bought a brand new camera for this movie, which is right here, this dinky little handy camera, and I really love it. It's a strange camera. It's got that digital 50 times zoom I love. I love how good those zooms are. You don't really see those on cinema cameras, and they're so smooth. I love how they go in and out. It has such a unique look. So I was going for that look, which I have a VHS camera for, but VHS cameras have so many headaches that I shot my first 2 features on VHS, and you need a constant power source because almost all their batteries are completely shot. And you also need to digitize all the footage in real time, which is a whole step that is so much quicker when you're just dragging footage from an SD card. So I went with this. It could have been accomplished on a VHS camera with a little more time in managing the footage. It also could have been shot on an iPhone, which is something I'll get into later. But I got $60 of extra batteries too, because I didn't want the batteries to die while I was out and about filming. And I probably could have done fine with just 2 extra batteries. I got 4, but it never needed more than 2 in a day, so that I went overboard there. The next biggest expense was the $100 stay at a Motel 6, which, me, Trent, and Dylan actually stayed at the motel, and we just filmed some things in the night and in the morning. And it was definitely a plot-centric expense that for me, it just evoked a lot of that feeling of being lost. Like, being at a motel for no reason is such a confusing place to be for the characters. So that was an expense I was willing to pay to convey that. And up next, bowling. We have a quick shot in the movie where Jack Stevens is bowling. And this is one where I walked the line where I'm like, maybe it wasn't a budgetary expense because, we were kind of killing time that night at the motel. So it was partially to like add the length to that plot line to make it feel like they really did a lot of things in that night. But also, we wound up bowling for 2 hours and probably only spent like 10 minutes filming while we were there. So I'm like, is this a budgetary expense? We just actually bowled for 2 hours. It was all you can bowl for $50 for 3 people, So realistically, we probably didn't do that for the movie as much as we did it just for fun, and then we found a way to incorporate it into the movie, which is another smart thing to do. If you're going somewhere and you're shooting it on a super low-key production thing like this that no one's gonna bat an eye if you're just taking some shots in, a bowling alley or something, go for it. Try to add it to your story. And lastly, some missed props and food. This is very quick and simple. Just some Arizona iced teas, York peppermint patties, granola bars, and scratch tickets. Just little incidental things that I thought would elevate the character and add a layer of brand loyalty to the character, where he loves these super cheap, horrible for you brands. And I think that was just one more layer I wanted to add that was so cheap that it wasn't even like a second thought. But with all that tallied, the grand total for the movie was $1,510. And that is impossibly cheap for just about any movie. But regardless, I set out to make a movie that was accessible to anyone. I wanted to make a movie that anyone could watch and they could understand the production elements. They could understand how they could shoot something comparable to this themselves. And I have been in many positions where I did not have $1,510 at my disposal, and it didn't feel like I would for a long time. So I want to pull back the curtain even further and tell you guys that this movie could be made for way less than this. Firstly, I had to fly home to Massachusetts to shoot this where I don't have a vehicle, but if I just conceptualized a plot or story that could happen where I do have a vehicle, that instantly negates the rental car fee, which is nearly half the budget gone right off the bat. Secondly, the camera. I wanted a very particular look for this movie. I wanted something that was reliable. My old VHS cameras aren't reliable. I wanted something I could just, know would work because it's new. So I got a new Handycam, but regardless, you could go on Craigslist, get a VHS camera, a flip video camera, use your iPhone especially. iPhone quality is probably better than this in a lot of ways. I just love the digital zoom. But just anything at your disposal would have instantly knocked the $500 off the budget too, leaving us with about $260. And that's where you start to just look at the plot and you think, what do I need? Did we need the Motel 6 plot line? Maybe for my story we did, but you could conceptualize a story that doesn't need to spend $100 at a Motel 6. Did we need the bowling? No, we didn't need the bowling. Cut that out, $50 are off. You are then left with, I think it's just the $50 of miscellaneous props and foods. Could you have gotten rid of almost all of this? Maybe just buy a couple Arizonas and then use whatever snacks you have laying around the house? Probably. Could you have cut the scratch ticket? Absolutely. That with all that consideration done, that would make this movie cost about probably $10, $20. And I've made movies that cost in that range, and I'm probably going to again. But I just want to make it clear that this movie was not at all, it never necessitated this amount of money. This was things I was willing to spend in order to make it the way I wanted to make it. But regardless, I don't want the message to be this is what you need to make a movie. You can make a movie for way, way less than this. And regardless, I wanted to start this project off with a very small scale, accessible movie. And I wanted to save some of that Patreon money for later in the year when maybe I want to make something a little bigger scale, something a little different, set in a different place, or that necessitates plane tickets and rental cars and rental place. I don't even know what. But I was saving some of that money for the later projects, and I wanted to come out the gates with something very intimate and small. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this budget breakdown showed you how accessible these movies can be. And thank you guys. Thank you so much for the support on Patreon. And I love movies. I love you guys. I hope you have a nice day. Bye-bye.